¿Qué tal? Muy buenas tardes a toda la comunidad del Programa Nacional de Inglés que nos ha acompañado durante ya ahora 3 semanas de este proyecto que inició con el interés pues de fortalecer temas tan básicos pero tan esenciales como es la metodología de la enseñanza del idioma inglés y que hoy pues cumplimos 3 semanas de avances y de capacitación. Quiero recordarles que la plataforma seguirá abierta hasta el 21 de agosto y van a poder seguir consultando todos los webinars, van a poder ver las actividades, realizar y completar aquellas que aún tengan pendiente, con el afán pues de lograr no solamente las horas de capacitación, sino también pues aprovechar estos recursos y tener una experiencia pues más integral en este ejercicio, primer ejercicio que se hace del Programa Nacional de Inglés en toda su historia. Bien, pues el día de hoy estamos con una gran, yo diría, no solo entusiasmo, sino una gran aportación que vamos a recibir de parte, pues, de 2 ponentes que nos acompañan justamente del MIT, que es Michael Resnick, que él es profesor de investigación de aprendizaje del Lego en el MIT Media Lab. Desarrolló nuevas tecnologías y actividades para involucrar a las personas, especialmente a los niños, en experiencias creativas de aprendizaje. Él lidera un grupo de trabajo en investigación que desarrolla el software de programación Scratch, la comunidad en línea y la plataforma que al momento se ha convertido en un líder y un referente en el mundo para niños. Su grupo también colabora con Lego Company en el desarrollo de nuevas ideas y productos educativos, incluidos los kits de robótica Lego, hoy muy conocidos y difundidos, pero un proyecto que cuando arrancó pues tuvo pues serios retos y sin embargo se ha consolidado en el interés pues obviamente del aprendizaje. También cofundó el proyecto Computer Clubhouse, una red internacional de ya 100 centros de aprendizaje en las escuelas, donde jóvenes de comunidades de bajos ingresos aprenden a expresarse creativamente con las nuevas tecnologías. Pues bien, Resnick obtuvo también una licenciatura en física en Princeton y tiene una maestría y doctorado en informática en el MIT. Él ha recibido diferentes galardones internacionales por sus aportes en la innovación y en la parte de la educación y la tecnología. Cabe mencionar que uno de sus libros como referentes, que incluso está vinculado con el tema de hoy, es justamente el de Cultivando la Creatividad a través de proyectos de pasión, compañeros y juegos. Ellos pueden ser consultados, pues no solamente en línea, sino también pues en diferentes conferencias, eventos, programas que ha presentado en este caso. También vamos a contar con la presencia de Natalie Rux. Ella es investigadora científica en el MIT Media Lab, ha desarrollado tecnologías creativas de aprendizaje. Michelle, buenas tardes. No solamente ha desarrollado estas tecnologías, sino también participó liderando los proyectos de Scratch justamente con Michelle, el lenguaje de programación gráfico que le permite a los jóvenes pues, diseñar, codificar animaciones interactivas. Ella lidera también estos proyectos dentro del MIT y tiene también una excelente formación a nivel de doctorado en desarrollo infantil en Tufts University, en Harvard como egresada en los temas de educación en tecnología interactiva y en Brown University en temas de concentración de lengua china. Cabe mencionar que aquí tuvo el magna cum laude. Pues muy bienvenidos, los dejo con la audiencia que están muy interesados en escucharlos y les agradezco enormemente toda su participación y apoyo al programa.
You can start now.
Okay. We should introduce Rupal as well. Rupal, would you like to introduce? We're very glad to be joined by our colleague Rupal.
Yes. Hello, friends. So great to be here with you all today. And I guess thank you for joining us in this conversation on a Friday afternoon. A great way to jump into our weekend together. My name is Rupal. I'm a part of the Lifelong Kindergarten group along with Mitch and Natalie. And I come to the group having been a classroom educator in different parts of the world, as well as a teacher educator. I actually once was an English language teacher in Peru, for a kindergarten class. So I putting my English teaching and kindergarten experience together. So I'm excited to speak to you more about creative learning in the classroom.
Rich, do you want to welcome us all here? We're so glad to be here with all of you and really appreciate being welcomed by PRONI and all of you there. So, Rich, do you want to say some initial welcome as well to everyone here? We're so glad for all of you to be joining us.
And it may be great if we could show all three of us. I think we'd like for all three of us because we're doing this together. So we do a lot of things as a team. And we really, it's great to have the opportunity to be talking with you. We've had wonderful experiences working together with educators from Mexico over the years. I remember many years ago coming to Mexico with Natalie for the computer clubhouses, which were mentioned, the after-school centers. And we've been there for different educator workshops. And in recent years, working together with Lula and Vero, we've really had great experiences with them and their colleagues who are working on creative learning opportunities for children in Mexico. So it's been great to collaborate with them and to learn from them and from their experiences. So it's great to be able to join all of you. And we really appreciate that they invited us to join. I think, as we mentioned, the three of us are from a group at MIT called the Lifelong Kindergarten Group. And we call our group the Lifelong Kindergarten Group because we've always been inspired by the way children learn in kindergarten. And we want to take the spirit of kindergarten and extend it through our entire lives. In fact, in our own work at MIT, we tried to create a big kindergarten. Even though we're much older than kindergarten age, we think we're going to be most creative if we try to recreate the spirit of kindergarten. So what is it that's special about kindergarten? If I think of the traditional kindergarten, my image is of a room where children are playfully creating things in collaboration with one another. In one corner of the room, children might be building towers and castles with blocks. In another corner of the room, they might be making pictures with crayons or paints. And in the process, children are learning a great deal. When children stack blocks into a tower, they learn about structure and stability. When children work with finger paint, they learn how colors mix together. But maybe most important, all of the children in kindergarten are learning about the creative process. They're learning how to start with an idea, create something based on that idea, experiment with it, collaborate around it, try things out. If it doesn't work, they make changes and try it again. And that's the key to the creative process. So children in traditional kindergartens are learning how to think creatively and express themselves creatively. And we think that's so important in today's world because we live in a world where creative thinking is more important than ever. We see that in the current situation. Right now, we're all being affected by so many unpredictable things because of the pandemic. So we constantly are coming up with creative solutions, new ways of communicating with our friends, new ways of preparing our food, all types of new things we have to do. We need to be creative, all of us, educators, parents, children. And I think this will be true in all parts of our life, not just in the pandemic. We live in a world that's constantly changing with many unpredictable things. So the key to success and to happiness will be the ability to think and act creatively. And that's exactly what children in kindergarten are starting with, that they starting to learn about that creative process and starting to develop as creative thinkers. But unfortunately, there's a problem. That too often, after kindergarten, children go on in school, and instead of the kindergarten approach, there's an approach to education that looks more like this, where a teacher is delivering information to the student or delivering instruction to the student. And of course, the student might learn something. If the teacher is delivering some facts, the student might remember some of those facts, but the student is not going to develop as a creative thinker. The student's not going to be prepared for today's society where creative thinking is so important. So we really need to move away from this model of education that focuses on delivery of information and delivery of instruction. And too often, we see that even as new technology enters the classroom, it just comes in this same old model. That instead of a teacher delivering instruction, the computer delivers instruction, or the computer delivers information. So we really need to, think about a very different approach. So our feeling is we really need to come up with ways to take that kindergarten approach, which is so successful with young children, and make sure that children of all ages can continue to learn and to grow in that kindergarten approach. So, it's because we know in today's society, that's going to be the key to success and to happiness, whether for an individual, for a community, or for a nation as a whole. The key to success will be the ability to think and act creatively. So what does this look like in the classroom? How can we take that kindergarten approach? I'll show a video here of a workshop that we organized. You can see Natalie in this video. And it's a workshop where children came to our lab at MIT, and they were using some of our materials, both traditional materials, craft materials, and some new technology materials, but in a kindergarten style to explore and experiment and express themselves. So let's watch the video.
The goal of these creative workshops is really to give children an opportunity to come up with their own ideas, imagine something, and then figure out how to design it.
We should still keep this plate, but take this one.
They need to be constantly exploring, experimenting.
Oh my God.
Through natural discovery, by testing things, by tinkering, by experimenting, by creating.
They're using Lego motors and sensors, and if it doesn't work the way they want, they start revising it.
So you have to kind of adjust the motor power so they actually have enough power to knock the lights off.
So they're really learning through having a goal, imagining something, and then bringing it to life. So rather than just thinking of the computer of something that I think, what am I supposed to do? They start thinking, what do I want to do with it? They start getting new ideas.
So,
Sorry.
I think even in that short video, you can start to get a sense of that spirit, of the kindergarten spirit. And again, these children, they were more like, 10 and 12 years old, older than kindergarten, but they were still learning in the kindergarten style. So in our research group, we're always thinking, what can we do to help children continue to learn in that kindergarten style? What technologies can we make? What activities can we support? What type of spaces can we create that support a kindergarten style of learning? And as we've thought about this, about how can we support a kindergarten approach to learning, we've come up with 4 guiding principles for supporting a kindergarten approach to learning. We call them the 4 P's of creative learning, because in English, they all start with the letter P: projects, passion, peers, and play. And I think you could see all of these 4 P's in the video that we just watched. The children were not just following instructions to get to a final result. Like too often, children are told, follow this set of instructions, and then you'll be graded or evaluated on how well you followed the instructions. In this workshop, children were working on projects. They came up with an idea and then turned it into a project. In this workshop, the theme was a day at the park. So they were creating different activities and machines and rides that you would see in a day at the park. So they were able to use their imagination and their creativity to start with an idea and carry it through to a project. And they were working on projects that they really cared about, that connected to their interests. So that's the P of passion. So we see that when children get a chance to work on things that they're interested in, that they're passionate about, they're willing to work longer and harder, and they'll persist in the face of challenges and difficulties, and they'll make deeper connections with the ideas that they encounter. And we saw that at the workshop as well. Children, one was making a project about a pirate ship because he loved pirate ships, and someone else was using certain craft materials, the pom-poms, because she loved using the pom-poms. So they were using materials and working on themes connected to their interests. And that's motivated them, that by building on their interests, it served as a motivation for them to continue to work and to learn and to make connections to the ideas. But we also know that people aren't going to learn just on their own, that the most creative learning happens when you're working together with others and learning with others. So that's the P of peers. So we always try to create technologies and activities and workshops where people and children can work together and learn with one another. You could see in that video, the children were always working together on projects and giving advice to each other. And when something went wrong, somebody would make a suggestion, and they would think together about a new idea or how to fix a problem. And they were constantly trading ideas and learning from one another. And we see that social side of learning is so important to the creative process. We don't come up with ideas just on our own. It's always part of a social setting. And of course, it's not just the children, that adults are part of that setting as well, that adults are part of the community that children are learning from. So the adults are not just delivering instruction, but they might also suggest ideas or come in and make connections between people and say, oh, I saw another project just like this. You should talk to the other student because they might have good ideas. So they're part of a community, learning together as a community. And they're working in a playful spirit. I sometimes say that play is the most misunderstood of the 4 Ps, because when people hear the word play, they sometimes just think about laughing and having fun. And of course, it's great to laugh and have fun, but it's not just about being entertained. When we think about play, we think of it not just as an activity, but as an attitude. When people have a playful attitude or a playful approach, it means they're willing to experiment and to try new things and to take risks. And you could see that in the video. The children were constantly experimenting. You could see that sometimes their experiments failed. You could see things that fell apart. But if you have a playful spirit, you don't see that as a disaster when things go wrong. You see it as an opportunity to try something new. You start asking, why did that go wrong? How might I do it better? So that playful attitude is so important to creative learning. So we always want to create an environment where children feel comfortable experimenting. Because if children are in a classroom or a workshop and something goes wrong and they do something that doesn't work and someone makes fun of them or criticizes them, they're not going to try new things again. So we want to make it a very safe environment where they're willing to play and experiment, to try new things, and they don't see when something goes wrong, it's not a failure, but a chance to try some new things and to learn some new things. Now, in this workshop, we were using certain materials, including technology and some motors, but these 4 Ps apply to everything, that you could use these 4 guiding principles in everything that you do, whether you're just doing things with paper and pencil or, on a playground, working together on creating a new game, or on a beach, creating a sandcastle. it doesn't require special materials, but no matter what children are doing, no matter what materials they're using, if we provide them the opportunity to work on projects based on their passions, in collaboration with peers, in a playful spirit, it will open new opportunities for creative learning. So we want to...
I just wanted to say,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Natalie.
I'm getting excited because I'm watching some of the comments that are coming in, and just how many people have been thinking about some of these ideas, are very excited to see some kindergarten teacher, but also understanding that this could go throughout. People talking about that there are very different contexts throughout Mexico. And like you said, yet the same approach could apply no matter what materials you're using. This idea of projects, passion, peers, and play. Some people who've been following the work for many years, and some people who are new to it. But it's great to see a lot of the people talking about this approach making sense to a lot of the educators that are here today. So thank you for sharing. Right. We'll continue to glance at your comments, and I know at the end we're planning to have more questions and comments that we'll be having Lula and others join us. So thanks everyone.
No, and it's great. Actually, please continue to interrupt, because I think it's great to respond to comments as they come. And as I'm talking, I'm not able to read the comments at the same time. I wish I could do multiple things that way, but I'm not so good at multitasking. I need to continue to improve. So actually, Rupal and Natalie, if you see some comments, it would be great if we can have small conversations about the comments, as we continue to share our ideas.
Yeah, and we'll come back to some of them. There's some good questions that we can come back to as well. So thank you all.
But let me know if you think we can stop for a moment and have little conversations if you think that could be helpful with some of the comments. Because, but I think although you can do all of these things with any types of materials, in our group we do spend a lot of effort on thinking, how can new technologies be used in this kindergarten style? Because we think what we see as most exciting about new technologies is not just that they can make things faster or more efficient, but rather that it can expand the range of things, expand the range of ways that children can create and the ways they can experiment. So we're always looking, how can new technologies open up new ways for children to create and experiment and express themselves? And that's what led us to develop the Scratch programming language, because it was right from the beginning. So Natalie and I have been working together on Scratch for almost 20 years now. We first started, actually our first conversation about Scratch was in 2001, and we really started working on it in 2002. And 5 years later, we came out with the Scratch became publicly available in 2007. And Scratch is a programming language that allows children to express themselves with the computer and to experiment on the computer. So with Scratch, children can create their own interactive stories and games and animations, again, very much in a kindergarten style. But instead of using finger paints on paper, children are using a computer screen to make interactive games and stories and animations. And children create with Scratch by snapping together graphical programming blocks. It's somewhat like, go to the next slide. It's somewhat like putting together Lego bricks. So the same way that you can build a tower or a castle with wooden blocks or Lego bricks, with Scratch, children can create their their own programming towers that tell different characters what to do. So like in this one, it looks like an underwater scene, and the blocks of the programming blocks will tell the fish how to move and how to react when they interact with different things. And one thing that's been so exciting to us is that as children create with Scratch, they can not just create things, they also can share their projects in an online community on the internet. And it's great for them to be able to share and get feedback from one another and learn from one another. And it's great for us because we get to see what they're working on. So we continue to be amazed at all of the different types of projects that children are creating and sharing with Scratch. And I think, right now, every day there's tens of thousands of new projects that children are sharing with Scratch. And I think what gets us most excited is not just the number of projects, but the diversity of projects, because that shows us that children are using it creatively. Because if children around the world were all using, go back, we'll go through them one by one. So if children were all just creating the same project, then it wouldn't, maybe they'd be learning something about programming, but they wouldn't be developing as creative thinkers. So we get excited when we go to the website and we see this incredible diversity of projects. So some are making animated stories. Others are making animated birthday cards. So the next one is one where children will make a Scratch project that shows, that was wishing happy birthday to somebody. The next one is like an animated comic strip using some Japanese anime style for making an animated comic strip. And the girl who worked on this made a whole series of different comics that she shared with people in the online community. Or people can make their own virtual Lego constructions. This was actually from a boy in Belgium who made a virtual Lego kit, so you could actually build things with virtual Lego bricks on the computer screen in Scratch. Other children work on games. This is a recreation of a classic video game, Donkey Kong. So they take a game that they like and they recreate it in Scratch. But we think that that's where the best learning happens, not just by playing a game, but by creating the game, by taking a game that was inspiring to them, by creating it themselves. That's where the best learning happens. And of course, other children make totally new types of games. We see lots of dress-up doll games where they make different clothing, and you then can put the different types of clothing onto the different characters. Some children, it took us by surprise that they started making tutorials in Scratch. We knew that we would make some tutorials for Scratch, and some educators like you would make tutorials. But we never imagined, or at least I never imagined, that so many children would create tutorials. This is a tutorial that helps you learn how to use variables. Actually, this was made by a girl in South Africa, and she loved making Scratch projects, and she found it was very useful to use variables. But she found out that some of her classmates didn't know how to use variables, so she wanted to share her knowledge. And we see that happening with so many children. They don't just want to share their project, they want to share their knowledge. So they create tutorials to help other people, to share their knowledge, to help other people learn how to do things in Scratch. So they're tutorials, how to use variables, how to make the background move, so many different things. There's many interactive artwork. So this was one where just using different styles of colors in order to create different artwork. And then, or an interactive tour. This is a type of, the last one is a science simulation. Actually, this last one we'll show in a minute. We have the example. This was done by a boy in India. And he was in middle school, and in his science class, they were learning about the layers of the earth, what was there at each different layer of the earth. And as a final project, rather than just writing a report, he used Scratch to make a guided tour of the earth. And you'll see in the project, he narrates it. So he has a little picture of himself, and he goes down in the earth, and he talks in his own native language of Kannada. He explains what's happening at different layers of the earth. And you'll see he was so excited. What he had learned, that excited him, was that things are moving inside the earth. So his teacher explained to us that he kept on saying he wanted to tell other people that things are moving in the earth, that it's not just solid. So he goes down and explains all the different things that are moving inside of the earth. Let's watch the project that he created.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಪುಟ್ಟ. ನಾನು ಭೂಮಿಯ ಮಧ್ಯಭಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಯಾಣ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನಿದೆಯೋ ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಇದೇನಿದು? ಕಲ್ಲು, ವಜ್ರ, ಬಂಗಾರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ. ಒಲಿಗೆ ಇನ್ನೇನಿದೆಯೋ? ಇದೇನು? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಶಬ್ದ ಬರುತ್ತಿದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಣ್ಣು ವಾಸನೆ. ಆಹಾ, ಅಯ್ಯೋ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತರ್ಜಲ ಚಿಕ್ಕುಗಳು ಎಂದು ಹರಿಯುತ್ತಿದೆ.
Okay. Actually, the next example I have is actually from a school in the United States. It was an elementary school. I think it was a 4th grade classroom. Actually, Natalie, do you know, was it 3rd or 4th grade?
Yeah, I think it was 4th grade.
Yeah. So, and in this class, they had read the children's book, Charlotte's Web. And instead of just writing a book report, the teacher asked the students to create a scratch project about their favorite parts of the story and things that were meaningful to them in the book. And so, again, it was partly about language learning, some of the same things that you're teaching. So it was a way to help children both, read the book and then share through language. You'll see in the project, they describe part of the story through text, but they're also learning many other things. Let's watch the story, and then I'll talk about the many different things that the children were learning when they create this type of project. So I don't know if you can read it. It says, once upon a time, there was a pig. His name was Wilbur. He was rescued from being killed because of a girl. Later, he became too expensive. So it's showing the story. Here, one thing I was really struck by this part. Notice how the pig became smaller as it was then talking. So certainly the student was learning a lot of language skills by writing about the book. But I was really interested that when the pig became smaller, the child was using something they learned in art class, perspective. That if you want to make something look further away, you make it smaller. So they were taking the knowledge they'd learned in another class and bringing it into Scratch and being able to use their knowledge as part of a Scratch project to make the pig look further away. And then how did they make the pig get smaller? Well, if you look at the programming code, in the program, that the size of the pig, there's a Scratch programming block that sets the size. And they kept multiplying the size of the pig by a fraction. Because when you multiply by a fraction less than 1, the number becomes smaller. So if you keep multiplying by a fraction, the size gets smaller and smaller. So they were using mathematical knowledge. So I really liked this example because the children were part of a language lesson from a book that they read, but they're also using and developing their mathematical skills and using and developing their artistic skills. I think that's one reason we like the project-based approach so much. That when you work on a project, you learn many different things, and you're motivated to learn those things because you're using them in a meaningful way as part of a project. That if you just try to teach children to multiply by fractions, they're not so interested. Why do they care about multiplying by fractions? But here there was a use for multiplying by fractions because they wanted to make this pig smaller. So we're always trying to provide opportunities for children to express themselves in meaningful ways. I want to show one more example. And this example was one where the child created this project at home, but then shared it in the online community. And I think it shows the power of the peers, of the social side of learning. So this was made by a child in the United States, in California, who really enjoyed drawing in Scratch and found out that one of the things they could do with their drawings was to create animated stories and games. And they created this project called Lemonade Time, where it's the type of story where you move a character and you need to gather all of the ingredients to make lemonade. You have to look for a lemon and look for sugar and look for water. And you can ask for advice on how to gather the ingredients. So they made this project and then they shared it in the online community for other children to play. Let's take a look at the game. You can hear the animal gets some advice from the bird and some advice from the frog about where to find the ingredients for lemonade. There's the lemon. This child loved doing artwork, loved sketching things. And they learned how to program because they found out that with Scratch, they could make their drawings come alive with Scratch. So as a way to take something they already cared about, their artwork, one of the things they're passionate about, their artwork, but then to become interested in something new because they could extend their artwork by making their artwork come alive and to turn their artwork into a story and into a game. And then it also became part of a social experience where they're learning with and from others. So after they created this project, they shared it in the Scratch online community on the internet. So in Scratch, when you create a project, you hit a share button, and then you can put it on your project page. So if we go to the next slide, it shows the project page for this project. So this is the lemonade time. So other children online could come to this page and see the project, play the project, try it out. And you can see that many people watch the project. So if you click Rupal, it'll show the number of views. So there was it like almost 20,000 views. And then many people love the project. So you can say that you love it. So a lot of they got positive feedback, how much they loved it. Then almost 100 people remixed the project. That means other people took the Lemonade Time project and made a variation of it. They turned it into their own. So they were working together. It's a type of collaboration in Scratch where children build on each other's. Of course, that happens in language classrooms as well, where somebody might start a story and someone else builds on the story. And we see part of creativity is building on each other's work. So we wanted to build that into Scratch the same way that in language, you often can learn by working together on stories and building on other stories. Children can also give feedback to each other. So there's a comment section, and here you can see there's more than 1,000 comments that people made about the project. And you can tell that the creator of the project was reading the comments and getting suggestions from the comments, because if you look in the notes at the top in the instructions, if you click one more time, Rupal, it'll say that due to popular demand, the otter walks a little faster now. So some people in the comments were giving advice that we think the animal, the otter, should walk faster. So the creator made the change in the programming code to make it walk faster. And again, this is the same. It's true in Scratch, but it's true for all creative activities. Of course, as children are learning to write, it's great to show their stories to someone else, to get feedback, and then to make changes based on the feedback that they get. So learning how to do that creative process is so important, to be able to share things and collaborate and make changes, whether you're writing computer programs or writing stories, with words. It's all part of the same creative process.
Yeah, so I was thinking, sorry to interrupt, but just seeing some of the comments, I thought it might be helpful to say, I think it does keep coming up, whether it's free, and thanks to our colleagues who've used Scratch are saying, yes, it's free. Also, people worrying about internet access. There are versions where you don't need to be connected, but then obviously a lot of people, often you won't necessarily have technology. So I know that, like Rupal, when you were working with educators, you were thinking, how can you have these same elements no matter what you're doing of the project's peers, passion, and play? I don't know if you want to say something about that for those who say, well, in my school, we don't really, a lot of the children do not have that access, and we have the same challenges here right now too, or at least similar ones for some communities.
Yeah, and I think When I was working with teachers, I often would have them go to Scratch to kind of see these 4 Ps in action and think of how could you bring this into a physical space or a place that's not in Scratch. So even animation, like we see in Lemonade Time, what could animation look like if you're not doing it with Scratch? Maybe it's asking kids to tell a story and draw the pictures, or using flipbook animation where they're taking a stack of papers and making a line move across several pages. But they're still doing a project about something they're interested in, they're getting feedback from their peers, and they're doing it in a playful way where they can do something and immediately see a result to help them learn and adjust their project. And so those elements are really nicely kind of designed into Scratch, but are things that as educators we can bring to any place that we're working with children.
Okay. And one thing we'll also show later, another question that might come up is the things we've been showing, the blocks have been in English. We'll show later that the Scratch program blocks are available in more than 50 languages. So children in different places, if they do have access to the technology, can always use it in their language and communicate in their language.
In this example, someone said it is, we ended up interviewing and getting to know the person who made Lemonade Time. And actually they're a high school student and started by just doing their artwork, just a drawing. And it was spending time trying it and learning from others, seeing what else other people were doing that slowly built up that ability to learn to code. So it can happen over time, little by little.
Yeah.
I see also some of the comments have been about the ages of kids who can use Scratch, and that we've seen really a variety of ages making Scratch projects. But one of the questions I had seen was, can you do this in elementary school? And absolutely, you can do this in with elementary age kids. I think sometimes it's just the comfort of the learner on a computer. But other than that, I have a 3-year-old daughter who is starting to explore Scratch and is understanding.
Scratch Junior, right? There's a Scratch Junior for younger kids. Yeah.
Which is another free app that you can get. So if the tablet kind of dragging aspect is easier for kids, the Scratch Junior is a nice opportunity. And again, my 3-year-old is enjoying it right now.
So when we first designed Scratch, we designed it thinking it would be ages 8 to 16. And that is where the primary use is. It does get used by some older children as well. It gets used in university classes for introductory computer science. But the biggest use is between ages 8 and 16. But since we saw young children wanted to do the same types of things, we then developed Scratch Junior, which we focused on age 5 to 7. And very special 3-year-olds can also use it, but it was designed for age 5 to 7. And as Natalie and Rupal said, they're all free, so you could just download them and try them out. I think as we think about these types of projects that children work on, it's worth thinking about what it is that children are learning as they work on these projects. And we sometimes think of it in terms of 2 big categories. That is, children are creating and sharing projects with Scratch, that Scratch helps you develop your thinking and develop your voice. That certainly as children are putting together the programs with Scratch, they're developing some systematic thinking skills, how to do things in a coordinated way, in a logical way, how to problem solve, how to break big problems down into small problems. When something goes wrong, how to think through the possible ways it went wrong, how to debug the problem to find what went wrong. So those are all important thinking skills that children are learning that aren't just skills for Scratch, but when you develop those skills with Scratch, you can use them in all types of things. That if you develop a type of reasoning with Scratch, it also helps you if you start to cook in the kitchen, you also can use that same type of reasoning. Or if you're trying to find a way on a map, to find a location, that you can also use that type of reasoning. So we think that Scratch helps children develop their thinking. But just as important is Scratch helps you develop your voice, to help you express yourself, to share your ideas with the world. And I think that's something that's very important to us, because a lot of times when schools introduce computer programming, they only focus on developing thinking skills, to learn certain computer concepts and to learn some, problem-solving strategies. And some of that can be useful. And for some people, it can be valuable if they might grow up and start using those for a technical career. But we think one of the reasons we were so interested in providing children with Scratch was not just for developing their thinking, but to give them the opportunity for sharing their ideas, to express themselves. Because we think for people to be full participants in society, it's important for them to be able to have a voice, to share their ideas. And we think it's quite similar to learning how to write. That when children learn how to write, of course, they're learning some thinking skills when you learn to write. You must organize your ideas to be able to put together a thoughtful sentence in a paragraph. You have to develop organized thinking skills. But for us, what's so important about writing is that it allows people to express their ideas, to share their ideas, whether it's writing a letter to a friend, or keeping personal notes in a diary, or writing an article in the local newspaper about an issue in the community. So for all of those are ways that we want people to be able to express their ideas, to be a full member and an active contributor to their community. So the same way that schools have all children learn to write, not just because it's a useful skill for jobs, although it is, but writing is useful for everyone just to share their ideas and express themselves. And we see programming the same way. Of course, it can be useful for some people to get a job. Programming can lead to some very good job opportunities. But even more important, that it's useful for everybody to develop their thinking and to develop their voice. So we're always thinking as we develop new activities for Scratch, not just how are children going to learn some new concepts and skills, but also how can this help children express themselves in new ways and share their ideas. So we love sharing ideas with language teachers like you, because we think we can learn a lot from the way the language teachers help children learn with language to express themselves. Because, oftentimes computer programming is seen more as a type of, engineering and math activity. And of course you do learn math skills with it, but we see it more like a writing activity, a way of expressing yourself. Right now, more and more, schools around the world are starting to adopt coding, and Scratch is the most popular way to introduce coding, and it's now become the place where Scratch is most used is in schools. When it got started, it was mostly with children outside of schools, at home, or places like computer clubhouses or libraries or community centers. But now a lot of the use of Scratch is in schools, and we do a lot of work with teachers. So actually, Rupal and Natalie have done a lot of work in working together with educators to help them think about how to bring Scratch to the classroom aligned with those 4 Ps. How can they use Scratch to support projects, passion, peers, and play? And we've learned so much from working with teachers around the world. So the next is a little video that shows some teachers talking about how children are learning and what children are learning with Scratch.
Scratch is a programming language used by students of all ages to code their own stories, animations, and games. And educators around the world are using it in all sorts of ways.
So when I think about kids interacting with Scratch, it's not only about them learning how to code and, the logical thinking skills that go into it. It's about them finding a different way to share their voice.
Children, they live with a lot of stories. Give them scratch. Those stories and those ideas and experiences that they have is what they will start to put down on scratch, and you see the energy coming.
小学校4年生の授業をやったことがあります。テーマは子どもたちに任せたんで、アニメーションみたいなのを作る子もいれば、ゲームを作る子たちとかもいました。
So we've done projects around what the year 2050 might be. And what we wanted to see is what really matters to them. What do they think is important?
Tenemos otro que se llama Jardín Botánico de las Mariposas. Es el ciclo de la mariposa y los niños hacen los sprites, ellos los dibujan, ellos los animan, ponen los mecanismos robóticos y crean sus propias mariposas de tela que traen de su casa.
There's a number of different things that learners are gaining from doing Scratch. It gives them confidence. It helps them take the big problem, break it down into the small parts, experiment, fail. It's all of those great parts of Scratch that can be applied to any other challenge that comes their way.
If you want your students to express themselves using coding, try Scratch.
We love that example that Lula was showing with butterflies in the classroom, because it combines so many different ways of learning, because they start by observing butterflies. And of course, watching and observing is an important part of the process. And then they started to create models based on what they had learned. And they created both models on the screen and Scratch, but also models in the world with physical materials. And again, if you create things in many different places, both virtual things and physical things, you learn more things by the more things that you create. So we were just so inspired by seeing examples like that from Lula's classroom and from so many other classrooms in Mexico and around the world. So we feel so fortunate that we're able to connect with this network of teachers around the world, where we can continue to learn how they're using Scratch in creative ways. So we continue to be inspired by the creativity of the teachers and the creativity of the children in taking this tool and having new ways of creating and expressing themselves.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so for example, for those classes that don't have access to technology, because before we had Scratch, we did other things too. And we have our colleagues, for example, in Brazil, and we'll share with you the ways that they're offering a variety. So there's some with computers, some that don't need it. But like Mitch was saying, that the work that her school did with the butterfly garden. So children going to observe nature or anything outside or even inside, how does water move? What sinks and floats? If they're stuck inside, there's still things that they could be looking at or experimenting with. And then modeling it using physical materials. Writing down observations is so important, making drawings, making predictions. And then, yes, if you have the access to technology, then you could, make models, take video or express your ideas, but it doesn't require it. I think the same, like you're saying, the same principles are there. So, and we'll share more about that. Sorry, go ahead, Rupal.
I was thinking of, I was reflecting a lot actually in this conversation and looking at the comments about how I was actually an English language learner myself. And I would practice English with my nani, my abuela, who lived with us. And she and I spoke Hindi together. And I actually found this is a book we would practice with to work on our English words. So it's just this kind of book with pictures of different scenes, and they're labeled with words. And then we'd make puppet shows about them too. So we'd every day, because we would be home together, make little puppet shows talking about our new words. And when my parents and my brother would come home in the evening, we would put on our own puppet performances, which was really fun. And I could also imagine it would have been really fun to do a Scratch project with my abuela, with my nani, because it'd sure be fun to then be able to share that with some of our family who's far away, to show kind of some of the things we're learning. So I actually thought this might be a good time for us to try a little bit of Scratch together and to see, some things, some ways that you might get started if you're an English teacher. And so I'm going to actually share my screen and we'll look at Scratch together. Okay. So hopefully you're able to see, and as Mitch was talking about, Scratch is available in a lot of different languages, and currently I have mine set to Spanish, but you could change that. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to Create, because we're actually going to make a little bit of a project together. And once I do that, and there's a tutorial here actually that will pop up and you can watch. There's a video and there's these steps you can go through if you want a little bit of support getting started. These are great to support you along the way. And we'll actually go into them a little bit further later. But I just want to show you here, there's a little icon of a globe with a drop-down arrow. And if you click on it, you can see all the different languages, like just so many different languages that you can choose from. So if you wanted your students to practice their English, you could have them select English and they could create their Scratch projects in English. And you'll see that we call this the editor in Scratch, was updated so that now all of the blocks, these are the little blocks, they now are in English. But they can also create in their home language and practice English through some dialogue. So I thought it'd be fun to maybe show you one way to get started. And I remember, making those puppets with my nani, with my abuela, that it was fun to try to have two characters talk to each other. So it might be fun for us to try. Should we try that, you think? You think, Natalie, Mitch? Yeah, should we go for it? Okay, so so here's our friend, the Scratch Cat, which we love, but we also have a lot of other characters. We call them sprites that you can put into a project. So I'm going to say adios to our Scratch Cat for right now, and we'll pick a new sprite. And we go there by going to our little cat, and there's a search little icon, and we click on there, and there's this huge library of all sorts of different characters. And there are different types of characters you can pick from. So if I wanted an animal in my project, I could just click on animales and I would see all the different animals. And I really think this penguin is quite cute. So I'm going to pick that for my project. So one of the things that, in practicing dialogue, we can actually have this penguin friend speak. Even though penguins don't speak in real life, we can, in the imaginative world of Scratch, make a penguin talk, which is fun. So I'm going to drag this block out, and it says right now it says hola, but if I'm thinking about maybe practicing English dialogue, I can change that to hello. And maybe I don't just want it to say hello, like in words. Maybe I want to actually hear it say hello. So I can actually add a sound to this. And I'm going to record my own sound. Hello. Maybe a very excited penguin.
I love how you say hello. It makes me
So very excited penguin today to meet all of you. And then maybe we can have the penguin say hello when here in the events blocks, we can see when a green flag is clicked. So this is the green flag in Scratch, is kind of our way of starting the show. So if you think about a play with the curtains opening, it starts, it's the same thing for us as the green flag. It's let's begin the show. So let's see what happens. And I can actually show you bit by bit. If I had just kept this, it'd say hello. And now if I put these together, oh, I need to pick my recording. Hello. Okay. And now if I want to do that in kind of, again, automatically with the green flag click, I snap all those blocks together so they become a nice sequence stack, and then hello. Okay, so we have a penguin that's talking, which is great, but who is it talking to? So we can add other characters to, again, practice dialogue, which I know, as when I was practicing English, was really motivating for me to have two characters talking back and forth to each other. So I can add another character, again, by going into the sprite library. And maybe I would like the penguin to interact with a person. So I can add a scratch, a different sprite. And I wanted to show you another way that you can have something talk or speak in Scratch. And so here are the basic kind of blocks that are in the editor. And if you're doing Scratch online, you can also have access to these extra blocks down here. We call these extensions. So it's this blue kind of button in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. I'm going to click on, and you'll see there's all these additional ways you can create in Scratch. And one way I think is really fun, especially if I was thinking about being an English language teacher, is this text to voice extension. So new blocks appear and I can drag them out. And right now,
Hola.
It's saying, hola. But maybe I want him to respond to our penguin in English. So I might say, hello, friend. And I might have him do that when he's clicked.
Hello, friend.
And you can see that because we're in Spanish or in Español Latinoamérico, it's going to have that accent to it, and we can change that as well. So let's see what our project is like so far. Hello.
Hello, friend.
And, you know, they seem kind of like they need a little bit of a setting, right? So I can add a backdrop to this to kind of make it more of a story. And I can do that by going again to the very bottom right-hand side of my screen. And I see there's this opportunity to add a backdrop. So I'm going to search for one. And the very first one I see is in the Arctic, which I feel is very fitting for a penguin friend. So now we're starting to see a story come to life, right? We're starting to see these pieces to come together. And you can imagine with your creativity as educators and as thinking about supporting English development or language development, there's so many different ways you can support students in creating their own stories, their own conversations to practice their language. And actually, we thought it'd be fun to actually see what kids have made in Scratch to support their language development. So we pulled only a few of the very many projects that are out in the community to show you a little bit and to inspire you to see what kids are already making. So I'm just going to take us there. Okay. And so I think, Natalie, what you're going, I can click through, and did you want to talk through this first one?
Yeah, sure. Are you going to make it quieter?
Yeah, I'll do that first. Okay, so
Okay.
This is.
So this first one, I spent a lot of time looking. There's so many different projects really from around the world that kids are making. And this was one that was made where it was a Spanish speaker. And I'm not sure if they started for themselves to make it, for them to remember the animals, but they shared it so that other people can also learn how about the animals in English. So this is just something that one of the young people created on Scratch. So I guess you start it. It says to memorize the names of these animals. So it starts, it was interesting that this child thought by first letting you know so you can try to remember. And then they go away, and how many true or how many did you get correct or errors? So it says to write the name in English of the animal that appears on the screen. So both of you try mouse. So then they put on music. So they go one by one. So this is a child, it wasn't a quiz made for him. They actually programmed the quiz themselves. And again, something like this takes more programming. Like each of these characters or objects or actors in Scratch were programmed. But it was interesting to see. And again, it's both a way to learn English, but it's also a way to learn about coding and to teach yourself and to help teach others. You want to come to the next one?
Yeah, I love that example. And then there's a completely different way of, using your animation, imagination in Scratch with this project called Word Art. And so if we view this project, you'll see, if you can look at your screen, I don't know how big or small it might be for you, but there is this actual scene here there's a sun, and it's actually made up of the word sun. So they're kind of practicing their nouns here. There's the leaves, are words that make up the leaves of the palm trees. The tree trunk is written in the word tree, and the sand. And you can see how they've added sound and animation to kind of really bring this to life and really internalize what that vocabulary means, right? By contextualizing it through their own project. And then a different example.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna put some people are asking where they could find these particular projects, so we can share that address as well, that URL. So this example is one where they were doing the dialogue like Rupal was showing, and you can hear this one, they were recording their voice. So yeah, maybe just play it and you can hear it's both English and Spanish and teaching certain words and phrases.
Hola, yo soy Devin. Esto es mi amiga Alex. Hola. Vamos a aprender inglés. Hello es hola en inglés. Hello. Goodbye es adiós en inglés. Goodbye. How are you? Es.
So there you go. So, you know, I think you could learn by actually telling a story. These ones where it's interesting to see where the students themselves wanted to make a teaching program or something that teaches people English. At the same time, you could just be writing a whole story out. So it's just a different way to show. And if you wanted to see how they did it, you could always click that see inside or ver dentro and see this is how they, and everyone programs a different way. Yeah. I can see Mitch is curious because usually we use weight blocks and they use some music weights instead, rests instead of weights. But anyway, it works. And I think that's the thing is you start to learn different ways from different people and how they code this. But you can just, it's a whole sequence. And we've heard that from language teachers that this whole idea of a sequence and like taking turns, that's part of what you're also reinforcing and learning. You want to show the next one?
Yeah, love to.
So and we have the address here. These are just some examples that I was finding, but there's like, you know, millions of examples in Scratch, but I was looking for ones that were highlighting how are they using English, Spanish, and language, but you'll find all different types of projects.
And this is a great example of a very different one. And, you know, this project, I think, you know, came about, actually, this was not a COVID-related project, but I'll let it play and then we can talk a little bit more about it. I love this project because, again, it's showing kind of an understanding of words and putting a purpose and a message and using Scratch as a way of sharing that message. So it's kind of a deeper engagement with a vocabulary and, again, being able to share this really beautiful message with others. And then I think this next one was a project that happened more recently during our current pandemic living. And Natalie, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, project? So it's been interesting to see because a lot of children are isolated at home in the quarantine right now with COVID. I know there and here and elsewhere in the world, many places. So you see that a lot of the creativity coming out in the different types of projects. And I saw this one last night where one of the young people made this and then someone else helped translate it into Spanish. So you can choose your language. Let's do, I guess, English for now.
I love this.
So the idea is you're bored at home, you don't know what to do, and it says, okay, you could write something, and it gives ideas for what you can do. But if you click again, you could say like, okay, I want a different idea. Okay, you could create something in Scratch. They said, I'm sure you got this because you're looking at it, but there's so many things you can do. I really like that this one, actually, I just noticed that if you like anything, there's definitely a group that would like it with you. So that passion, if you like drawing, you can join an art one, but you can make long lasting friendships on Scratch too. And we've definitely seen that. So, and again, this is where the kids on the website, for those who are able to access the online, are like commenting to each other, and then they remix it and they add their own ideas. So if you don't like those activities, you could add, and then you see what others do, or you could change it, you know, into another language. So below there, the comments about it. And actually, yeah. So you see that. And it is, we do have moderators from around the world, and we have people watching the comments and to make sure that it's a safe environment for children to explore. If you look at the next one, I came across this one called Gracias, and it actually, this young person from Mexico just joined at the beginning of June, they said. But they said that Scratch has led, even though that they're, you know, alone and at home with the quarantine, but if you play it, I think you can see the images better. Yeah. Well, you can read it probably better, but they're making friends, gaining respect of others. They don't feel so alone during the quarantine. And then if you click, so that they wanted to say, there you go. So they were saying thank you to Scratch and to the other people. And in the comments, you see that there's both English and Spanish comments. So, and one of them said, I don't speak Spanish. And so actually the creator said, okay, I'm going to remake it, reinvent it next week in English so you can understand it. So you can see the motivation to learn different languages, and especially because a lot of them speak English. And then that person said, by the way, it's okay that you speak Spanish. And they noticed, oh, you speak Spanish and English. And she said, I also speak some French. So again, they're talking about their language use, and you see some of them are commenting above in Spanish as well. So, and then you see it's in a studio that talks about hablemos español. So there's some kids are learning Spanish, some kids are learning English, and a lot of other languages.
I also love this kind of exchange because it kind of highlights one of the really, I think, helpful parts about learning anything is just the peers, again, the motivation by peers. And so here, because someone's saying, hey, can you do this in English? The creator of the Scratch project is saying, yeah, like is motivated by that, like wants to further learn because they're part of this community and they're so invested in this community. So I really think that's a really special part about Scratch is that global community, and you can interact and learn from and with kids and people all over the world. So I think, and we've shared the link to this particular studio. And again, this is a small sample of a lot of different things that kids are creating on Scratch, and I'm really excited also to see what you all will create. And maybe we should go to how to kind of some of the resources we have.
Yeah, it sounds like showing where to find the tutorials. Okay. And then like maybe even showing how you could get to that studio if they wanted to, just as examples. It sounds like Lula is suggesting.
Okay, great. So one way, so when you go to Scratch, you can log into your account and create an account if you don't have one. I'm going to be logged out just to show us kind of where to go, but you'll see there's create where we went to make our project. There's also this ideas tab, and you'll see here that there's all sorts of these tutorials and ways to get started with Scratch. And so if we click on this one, create a story, you you can try the tutorial. And so if we did that, it will take us right back into the editor. Again, that's the space that we call this. And we could play this video, which will tell us a little bit about what we might be able to make and give us some ideas and show some examples. We can
actually,
also,
those are going to be in Spanish very soon. You would see them, but right now they do have subtitles that you can choose. But yeah, these images are already in Spanish as well, or in English, depending what you want to use.
Yeah. And so you just can click through and again, get suggestions on steps you might take to start creating a story. If we go back, so when I clicked on this, you'll also notice that there's coding cards. So if we look at that, you'll notice that if these were materials you want to share with a student, by sending them this link, or if you, hopefully soon when we're in person with students again, you can print these out. But these are also helpful ways to support people in getting started and working with a project. So if they wanted to think about, having a character say something, this helps them understand how they might get started with that. Also, in each little tutorial, there's an educator guide. And so that is a little bit more facing for the teacher who's supporting, and it gives you some ideas of how you might introduce this project to your students, ways to kind of structure the lesson or the time together. And we kind of use this model of imagine, create, and share. And there's suggestions on how you might facilitate those three components of the lesson.
And I think if we were in the other Espanol, not Espanol Latin America, more of it is translated, but
okay,
in the website. Yeah.
Got it. And then if we were in the create again, so if we are just going to Scratch and we say, okay, let's start making something, you can also see that there is this tutorial that comes up right away. But if we want to do something different, we can go to the tutorials and we'll see again all of those different ones that we shared.
And maybe pointing out, if you are online, those ones where you can talk. So like some of the first ones, like imagine a world is a good beginner one, or, animate a word or name. And then if you just click that little tutorial button within there too, you can get back to the main one. Yeah. And then down below, the ones about create animations, and the talk shows how to use the text-to-speech where you're typing in.
Okay, that's the one we tried. Great.
Thanks.
And then, should I go back to the slides, Natalie?
Sure.
Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna stop sharing here. And I will start sharing here.
Good navigating.
Trying. Okay, here we go. So we just kind of talk through these, but again, just wanting to show you, and here are some of the websites that we went to. So if you want to directly go to them, there's again, several different ways that we've tried to create supports for educators. And I don't know, Natalie, do you want to talk through any of these further? Or
we could just go really quickly. Those, like we said, the ideas, which Rupal showed you how to get to at the top. So those just have all different resources, the scratch cards and other things. It also at the bottom shows you how to download it's okay. It shows you how to download if you want to use it offline without an internet connection. You can download. There's a link to the downloadable editor. Actually, on every page it says Scratch, download Scratch, or you can go there. And then the next one, you already, thank you, introduced the tutorials, the scratch cards, which you could view, like she said, print it out, or you could view on the phone. They're kind of nice to have separate from the screen to get, and the idea there is just like one little bit. Okay, how could I just get two characters talking? So it's not a whole long tutorial, it's just one piece, and you can choose which card, and we've found that those work really well. We've heard from a lot of educators around the world that they're translated into many different languages, thanks to our volunteer translators, because it's helpful to have rather than a long series of steps. It's like, oh, I want to just try this piece. And then students and learners build from there. From one little thing, they start to, oh, what if I try this? What if I try that? And that's the thing, is that's really when I ask kids, how do they learn? Mostly they don't say tutorials. They almost never say tutorials. They learn by just trying, and they see what happens. You know, it's like working in the physical world, you know, stacking up, people were talking about stones or blocks or whatever you have. You learn when it falls apart, okay, let me try something else. And that's the same thing with Scratch. They also learn by seeing inside other people's projects and see, how did they do it? Oh, okay. And you can, and you know, some people might call that copying, but it's actually the way that professional programmers and others learn, is by looking at how did other people do it, and then remix it, build on it, change it. And there's been research to show they're not just copying, that kids, when they remix, they're picking up new ideas.
In fact, some of the best research on that was done by one of our former students who's from Mexico. So we have the strong Mexico connection in Scratch. Andres Manuel Hernandez created the original Scratch website and also did sort of the leading research on remixing of Scratch projects and students learning through remixing.
Great. And so I think one of the other things we want to share with you all was we have this particular website, scratch.mit.edu/educators, which has all of these different things we've been talking about: tutorials, the cards, you know, the educator guides, kind of in one place for you. And so if you were to go here, and after this talk again, if you want to explore some more and just kind of see some of these materials in one place, this is another helpful website for us to share. And then lastly, I want to talk about something that is very near and dear to our heart, because we have many of our facilitators of this course supporting this webinar today. So so grateful for them always, but particularly in supporting us today. We have this free open online course called Learning Creative Learning. And actually, this past spring, in April and May, we ran a special session of Learning Creative Learning. But every year in October is usually when, and again, coming up in October in a few months, we will host the course again. Again, it's free. It's really a community, not just a course. It's a global community. And you'll see here that it's 6 weeks. You kind of have access to readings and videos. These videos and readings are in multiple languages, and just kind of showing here that they are available in Spanish, but they're also available in English, as well as, you know, Japanese and Turkish and Portuguese and all sorts of languages, because the course is taken by many people over the globe. And it's one of the beautiful aspects of it is you get to meet educators like yourself who are interested in bringing creative learning into their contexts, like English language teachers in different parts of the world who have done that using Scratch, or, you know, the 4 Ps. And so this course is particularly oriented around the 4 Ps and processing them for ourselves as learners, reflecting on them, and thinking about how we might design around them. And so here's the website for that, lcl.mit, sorry, LCL, it's getting hidden here. Let me go back. And we'll
they have it down below.
Okay, great.
It's down below. Thank you.
Sorry, LCL, there we go. .media.mit.edu, where you can go and you can sign up if you're interested in getting alerts about when the course is starting. You can go there and sign up and be on the kind of mailing list to receive an email when the course is opening, to again, free course to sign up if you want to meet other educators like yourselves who are interested in bringing creative learning into their practice. And again, really grateful to our friends and colleagues who support the community of participants from Latin America who are joining and supporting us today on the webinar. So thank you, facilitators. And then I guess
there's already a great community of educators from Mexico joining LCL. Some of them are here now. So if others of you join, you'll feel at home, but there'll already be educators from Mexico, but you'll also meet educators from around the world. But actually, it'd be great to hear maybe if Lula or Vero could say a little bit about their experiences.
Well, Vero has had some technical problems, but she's writing in the YouTube transmission. So she's writing and writing. Her name is Veronica Estrada. And our experience has been since 2009 that we started with the Scratch Day. The Scratch Day, maybe Mitch or Natalie or Rupal would like to tell us what is a Scratch Day?
Well, actually, yeah, we started, we started many years ago. We decided, as we started with Scratch and people were online, we knew that kids would also want to meet in person. So at MIT, we had a Scratch Day event and lots of families from the Boston area came together. And it was so successful. One of the students in our group said, why don't we just encourage people around the world to do this? And it was wonderful. We shared what we did for Scratch Day. And in a few years, there was hundreds and thousands of Scratch Days around the world. And some of the best Scratch Days are ones that we've seen in Latin America and then in Mexico in particular. So we really appreciate the work that's been done here in Mexico to support children and families coming together in order to learn and share in working with Scratch. And though usually it's done by people coming together in person, maybe Lula, you can say about what happened this year.
Yes, as you know, this year we could not make the Scratch Day in person altogether, but what we did is we made simultaneous workshops, all of them at the same time. We met in an hour. Well, it was not an hour, it was 2 hours. And I just copied the website so that our friends can find it. And we were all meeting together. We gave up we taught the workshops and we had our Scratch Day because we couldn't think about not having our traditional Scratch Day. We've been having Scratch Day for 11 years now. So we teach Scratch in Spanish. We create a community and you can be with us in Latin America. Continue, please. Veronica should be writing in the Scratch. Yeah, she's writing, no?
Yeah, so I mean, I gave the URL you see there is really designed for those in-person events. And we were just amazed that Veronica, Lula, and a lot of the others who, many are joining us, Angel Hernandez and others, organized from all different countries in Latin America, organized this incredible Scratch Day with hundreds of people to learn and create and share. And again, some of the kids did not have Scratch yet, but they were making characters using physical materials. And here, actually, this plate you see here, this girl, this was a paper plate, a little plate that they made a character on. So some children just held up, the plate, and then others brought the picture into Scratch and made it into a character there. We were just amazed how in a very short time, Vero and others organized these different breakout rooms where people could watch and learn, and even some of them creating along and coming up with their own ideas. So I know we might want to shift to I know there's so many good questions and comments.
Maybe we can, I am copying the website from this year, and inside of the website, you can search for all the videos of all the workshops, so you can learn from those 2 hours of workshops that were happening at the same time. Room 5, room 6, room 4, so you can learn.
Great.
Also the LCL community, Carmelo, Lily.
Yeah, we should mention the work that we've been showing today is the work of a large number of people in our research group. We feel very fortunate to have this incredibly creative community of researchers and students who are working together, both in creating Scratch, developing activities for Scratch, supporting creative learning. So the work we've shown today, sort of owes a lot to a large, group of people working together on that.
Yeah.
So did we want to see if there's any questions to share, and then I can put this. I don't know if to put that up or.
Let's see questions. Lots of questions about how to do it in preschool. Lots of questions of junior high, maybe math, science. And this is one question from me. The connection with the emotional part and the production of the program when you're programming, and the emotional part, please. Because lots of people are asking about that part too.
Natalie, do you want to talk some about sort of some of the things about sort of the way the focus on building on interest? I think that connects to some of the emotional part, or maybe you.
Yeah, I do think that when children are like sharing something they care about, like you saw in the comment, you can find people who care about similar things when you're going through a hard time. I think a lot of us do go back to what is our interest. Cooking, some of the kids are cooking, or animals that make them feel better, or friendships, music is very popular in a way, social, emotional. So it's both the connection to other people, but also creating something based on your interests and then being able to share it with someone else and knowing that someone's seen it. Again, whether it's Scratch or using physical materials to make something, and then to be able to share it in some way with someone else, whether it's the people in your family, but to be look what I made. That whole process of is very builds confidence, and it builds your ability to feel like you're being heard, and that what you care about, that other people care about that too.
One project that really touched our hearts during the pandemic was there was a member of the Scratch community who for a number of years made many creative projects in Scratch. Who was an active member of the community, but then went away. She was in high school. She wasn't continuing to use Scratch. But during the pandemic, she came back to the community and she did a project called Random Acts of COVID Kindness. And it was a Scratch project to try to encourage people to do kind things for one another, and to document and to match up people who needed an act of kindness and others who could support them in ways. So people could write in about how they needed support and others would support them. And for us, there were so many things about that we liked. That this Scratcher, the members of the community, we call them Scratchers, she wasn't just coming to do creative work, although that was part of it. She came back because she wanted to connect with other people. She knew this was a community where people cared for one another, and she wanted to help that community during this difficult time. So she then, through her project, was able to gather people together. So for us, that type of collaboration and kindness has never been more needed. So
and there's another, like the thank you card, making thank you cards. People have been thanking doctors, medical staff, frontline workers. So to be able to use, and again, either if you have Scratch, you could make an animated card there, but obviously people are making, with whatever materials you have, and how can you show your thanks, again, as a way to connect. And that is the peers part, I think, is the hardest for all of us right now, and so what are ways to connect, that we can do. You had mentioned like preschool, the Scratch Junior is there. Yeah, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I don't know if Rupal could share the website.
Yeah, we have it now. It's under there. It's being shown right now.
Okay, so that everybody could see the.
You need to see it. Sorry. Oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could share the screen where yeah.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
And I remember there's a part in the Scratch Junior that has the connections that tells you where you can find what.
Let me just, sorry, I'm just about to share my screen.
No worries. We are live. Natural.
Here we are. So it's available free, and here's where you can download the app. You know, works really well on iPad. Actually, just a quick story about this and how it relates to preschool. So I mentioned I have a daughter who's 3 years old, and her passion is baked goods. So cookies, cakes, cupcakes, and that passion we have brought to all sorts of materials like Scratch Junior, where she can go on and she can actually change and make a cake in a lot of different ways. There's a sprite or a character in Scratch Junior that's a cake. With Legos, she's making a cake. With Play-Doh, she makes different cakes. When we're at the beach, she's making different cakes. And so it's this passion of hers that she really loves and that we bring through different materials very playfully, like Scratch Junior. And she's always taking pictures, or I'm taking pictures, really, and she wants to share them with her grandparents. So wanting to get that feedback from other people in her community. But yeah, this is I don't know if there's anything specific on the website you'd like me to click on or show, but.
Yes, there's a.
To learn.
When you click, I think.
Under learn.
Yeah, that one. That one. And that in that area, you are very easily guided through the numbers to understand what to do, where to do it. And it's very easy in the website. And there's also another section that shows you projects that you could work. If you're out of ideas, there's another part, I think, in the menu that is teach. They're in teach, I think. That takes you to suggestions of different kinds of projects to approach in case you want to start and you know where to start. Or there in activities. So you can also start and the Scratch Junior, you download it into your you can use it in your cell phones or iPads or tablets. It's Android and also iOS. So you can. Yeah, I will be quiet. They're saying that you should be speaking.
No, it's great. You are
talk for a lot, so it's great to hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
So I just saw the message, so I understand you should be speaking.
No, it's
having you as our long-term friend that we've made through Scratch and through creative learning. Actually, I realized I'm muted. So I was saying that, we value you, your contributions, Lula. You've helped so many educators and children and families to learn this approach of creative learning. Yeah.
By the way, we only missed one part in the Scratch site, that is parents. There's a section for parents.
Yes.
Maybe you would like to share it and tell us about it, please.
In the Scratch Junior site, sorry, Lula?
No.
The Scratch.
Okay.
The Scratch.
Yes, maybe if you're not logged in on the home page, we should be able to get there from the button.
Let's see. Okay. For parents.
Yeah, you go. There's a. You tell them, please.
Yeah, what were you going to There's like questions and answers. So.
But just overall, we think it is just really important the role that parents can play, especially with younger children, in helping to support them as they're getting started.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Natalie.
No, I was going to shift. So,
but and we just see so many great stories about how it sort of can bring together parents and children for creating together and learning together, as they do with many other activities of whether it's painting together or building together, but creating Scratch projects together, can bring children and parents together and families together. Actually, Rupal and Natalie, maybe you can talk about some of the work we've done with families.
And I put up, thank you, Ana Laura, they put up the URL for the Brazilian Creative Learning Network. Has a site that they've put up recently with help from Lego Foundation. It's available in Portuguese and English. I'm finding out about a Spanish version. But you can see that this has activities for different ages that families can do at home. And some of them require a computer. Many of them do not require a computer. So it's really modeling what are different ways to do creative learning at home, like shadows. You just need light. And then it talks about the same approach that we use. They really highlight this process. So what materials, like a flashlight from a phone or other light. You could use any lamp that you have. And then if you scroll down, it talks about each of them. It highlights, I really love this. The same process that we do in Scratch that you can do with any materials. How do you get imagining, coming up with an idea? And that's one of my favorite parts, where you have kids, you talk about like, okay, we're gonna make shadows. What kind of animals can we make? And you just see kids, when they get an idea, their whole face and body, it changes. Like, I know what animal I wanna make, a dinosaur or a cat or whatever it is that they decide they really care about, what kind of animal or imaginary creature, and then create. How do they do it? And then this important part that we've been saying, the peers, or whether it's your family or whoever you can share with, to show, look what I did. And it gets you reflecting on your process and coming up with new ideas. And it's a big part of the motivation, is to be able to share your project with other people. So I really love that they quickly put this up, because knowing that families are at home, there's a lot of learning, that opportunities at home and challenges with not being able to go to school. So each of the activities in this website, Creative Learning at Home, and they show you examples. So each of the activities have the same structure, no matter what materials you're using, with or without computer. Imagine, how do you get kids imagining, creating, and then sharing what they've created?
I'm sharing the website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Brazil has similar conditions as us. No?
Yeah, we're different. I mean, yeah, and a lot of different, some people who have no access to technology in rural areas, and others who have more, and what are the ways. And we've been talking about different ways, TV, radio, but no matter what it is, how to move away from this idea that Mitch showed of the information just getting delivered, and how can it be more, no matter what materials you have or where you are, that you're doing more of imagining, coming up with ideas, creating. Often you run into a problem, that's where problem solving happens. It's not working, whether it's Scratch or my puppet doesn't look like, or my shadow doesn't look like what I want. How do I problem solve? You start learning problem solving, and then sharing communication skills, often collaborating with others. Yeah, another question that came up, and maybe Rupal, you could talk about first, like, do teachers need, someone had asked earlier, do teachers need particular preparation for leading creative learning with their students?
I think, one of the things, I used to work a lot with teachers around kind of the ideas of the 4 Ps. And one of the things I think is really important for educators is to practice and try these things out themselves as a learner. So I see some people have made Scratch projects today as they've been listening, and that's exactly it, to actually feel the power of these ideas by practicing them yourself as a learner. I always talk about the metaphor of like the heart pumps blood to itself first before it goes to other organs, like this, right? So we have to feed ourselves as creative individuals so that we understand its importance and we can share that with kids. And oftentimes for teachers, it's just little tweaks that they can make to the little changes, little tiny things that they can start trying, the first step. I usually have my kids write a story. They're just writing it. I wonder if the next time I do that project, I might invite them to write the story, or they might create a script and act it out, or they might make a scratch project, just even opening up the ways that they might share their learning and understanding. But I really think an important thing for teachers is to first practice and try themselves what it's like to learn this way. And that's again why I really love the Learning Creative Learning course and the community that we have here represented in Latin America, because that allows you to try it out. It gives you a space to begin to practice and think about and reflect on these different ideas for yourself.
Lula, you were saying that people were asking about how to download. Thank you.
The offline version when they don't have internet, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll share my screen. Okay. So, sorry, I'm not.
Under support, the download, yeah.
It's right here.
It's one way. You can also, like I said, on the ideas page, you can also find a link, or you can go to this URL.
And of course, you need to have an internet connection to do this download.
The initial download, yeah.
Right, but just to download, but also someone could download it, put it on a flash drive or in other thing, and then distribute it to others. It's free to distribute. So if you needed to use it in a place where there's no even connectivity for downloading, you could download in one place where there is connectivity, make copies, and then take it to other computers and install it.
Yeah, so if you go to the download page, you can see the different versions that are available right now. Because you're on Mac OS, it's there, but you can click on that. You can choose your OS. Right now, it doesn't run well on phones. That's another thing we're going to work on, but it does work on the Chrome OS. And someone had asked about Google Classroom. That's the only one, the Chrome OS version, if you have a tablet. Or yeah, Android tablet, the same thing, that there's a way to use it offline with that, and also to share for those who use Google Classroom, or just to save locally. So let's see. I was thinking back to the question, like for teachers' preparation, that learning creative learning again in the fall. And again, we're so glad to be joined by so many of the LCL community members in the chat. They've been answering a lot of the questions. We're really grateful for their So
we can always invite them to join Scratch. And from them, we start from scratch.
So the LCL, again, LCL is not only about Scratch, that's just one, and it's really showing with different materials, with whatever you have around, what are the encouraging thinking about creative learning around the world with whatever you have available. And I think, a lot of people are in the same situation of figuring out how do we do this online. I know that, educators like you and others around the world and here are really trying to figure out how to shift now with all the challenges that are happening now. And someone had said, how do you do this with 50 students? Definitely people are doing that, because you have the tutorials, those cards that help guide kids. And Lula, would you want to say something about your peer teaching?
Oh, my peer teaching. You mean little teachers?
Yeah.
There's another advantage, teachers. Yesterday we talked about little teachers. Little teachers are our own students that become even better than us, much, much better. They know such shortcuts and good ways to teach other peers that it's easier to have a scratch class among the class because you can have multiple little teachers working with them. And they really love to communicate and they feel very proud doing that. And as they go along through their lives, it's been like a huge. I've been working with little teachers since 2008, and we already have university little teachers working and sharing also. So it's been like the 21st century skills that has to do with empathy, resilience, collaboration, teamwork, all those kind of 21st century skills are very present when we have little teachers teaching Scratch.
We've learned so much. Often you hear people are mentors when they're in high school or college. We've been so inspired by the work that Lula and previous school where children as young as 8 were starting to mentor others and talking about it years later. Some people are saying, like, there's 2 different accounts, and I know we're getting it, but people are logging in to make their own accounts. And just knowing, like, it's a free account, you can get your own account. They're also from the educator page, you can get a teacher account, a separate teacher account where you can manage classes easier.
Also something very important for little teachers, they love to being taken into consideration to go to conferences or reunions. In this case, every time I have been able to go to Boston, I always bring a little teacher with me, girl or boy, so they can live the experience to go where adults are working, learning, and creating. It's a good opportunity also. So the authorities, SARC, I think SARC is back, and Juan Carlos.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank the Programa Nacional de Inglés from SARC, Lula, and others for inviting us to share today. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
We appreciate the collaboration with the teachers in Mexico for many years. This is great, just another additional way of us coming together. And we look forward to continue to build on it and to have continuing collaborations into the future.
Yes, of course, we would love to. This webinar, this time was amazing for all of us. The teachers, I see the comment box, they're thrilled with you. Thank you very much for being here with us. It was amazing. And it was a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure. Same here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Muchas gracias, Natalie, Michelle, maestra Lula, muchas gracias, RuPaul, muchas gracias por todo el apoyo, muchos comentarios, muchos intereses. Y bueno, pues vamos a proceder a nuestra clausura de este evento. Muchas gracias al apoyo del MIT.
They are thanking you so much for all this collaboration and how you've been so kind to everybody, telling them everything so that they can really go deeper into learning. And this is the last conference. They're finished their activity. So you were the last conference for the teachers. And we've been seen by 3,600 teachers.
Wow.
And then in the afternoon, when they look at it again, the number will rise. So more teachers will see you, will learn from you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, RuPaul. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lula.
Muchas gracias. Lula.
Bien, pues comentarles que hemos leído todos sus comentarios. Todos nos parecen relevantes. Sabemos que el Programa Nacional de Inglés tiene muchos retos. Ha habido espacios en que no se habían dado este tipo de colaboraciones, pero les agradecemos en verdad muchísimo el que se hayan dado el tiempo para que de manera pues, voluntaria, porque este programa se creó para ustedes en la medida de sus tiempos, de sus posibilidades. Hemos encontrado muchas aportaciones. Juan Carlos y yo revisamos constantemente y hacemos comentarios que ustedes han leído. A veces no podemos contestarles a todos de manera tan personal, tan puntual, pero sí tenemos la tarea de buscar estos acercamientos. Recordarles que en cada entidad tienen su coordinador local, quienes están en escuelas atendidas por el Programa Nacional de Inglés, sean asesores externos o sean profesores o profesoras, ellos estarán siempre atentos a darles, pues, en la medida de lo posible el programa y de acuerdo a nuestras capacidades, pues, la respuesta para incentivar el tema de la enseñanza del idioma inglés. Pues bien, estamos en unos minutos de cerrar y de presentar a nuestros, no solo invitados, a nuestros aliados. Creo que valdría la pena, pues, irles dando la bienvenida. Tenemos ya la llegada de la coordinadora del Programa Nacional de Inglés a nivel local de Nuevo León. Liliana, si puedes acompañarnos en pantalla.
Sí, claro, aquí estoy ya. Muchas gracias por la invitación a participar.
Pues Liliana ha sido una aliada estratégica porque no solamente todo es desde la federación, desde el área central. Hemos trabajado de la mano con todas las coordinaciones, pero en particular Liliana se sumó a esta iniciativa, también como lo sucedió con las coordinaciones de Guerrero, las coordinaciones de Nayarit, de Chiapas, que nos fortalecieron también con pues, personal para el tema del apoyo técnico que brindamos. Y pues te agradezco enormemente este apoyo, Liliana, y pues seguimos trabajando de manera colaborativa, ¿sí? ¿Quieres dar algún mensaje, Liliana?
Bueno, pues nada más el agradecimiento de parte del Estado de Nuevo León, de parte de las autoridades locales, por siempre tomarnos en cuenta para participar de manera activa en todo este tipo de actividades. Cuando platicamos en la planeación, yo les decía que, bueno, yo vengo recorriendo un camino amplio en lo que es el programa. Estoy aquí desde el 98. He visto cómo ha venido creciendo y creo que ahora está en una etapa de mayor crecimiento, en una etapa en la que, bueno, pues creo que vienen muchas cosas buenas para todos y agradezco la oportunidad que se les está dando a todos los asesores externos especializados, a los docentes sobre todo, de poder participar en este tipo de capacitaciones. Yo creo que de no ser por esta pandemia, nunca hubiéramos tenido una capacitación con tanta capacidad de participación de todos los estados. Así que como dicen que a los malos tiempos siempre buscarles lo mejor, y yo creo que esto es algo que nos queda a nosotros como programa algo muy satisfactorio. Fue muy bueno que se abordara en esta capacitación todos estos temas, sobre todo pues desde los fundamentos del programa, porque algunas veces estoy segura que al igual que su servidora, todos mis compañeros coordinadores siempre trabajamos con nuestros equipos arduamente para capacitar a todos nuestros asesores y docentes para siempre tenerlos vigentes en los programas. Sin embargo, en algunos momentos estamos tan inmersos en nuestro trabajo del día con día, en nuestra escuela, con nuestros niños preparando clases, y algunas veces nos olvidamos de echar una vistita atrás y volver a recordar estos fundamentos que son básicos para el programa, en recordar todas estas metodologías que nos pueden ser de gran utilidad. Me gustó mucho que se haya abordado como desde las edades tempranas, porque regularmente el programa inició en primaria y luego ya se vino integrando también en lo de preescolar, cuando ya empezó a crecer y a agarrar forma, ¿no? Entonces, esto de haber retomado cómo podemos implementar el programa desde edades tempranas, qué metodologías utilizar, la planeación que es básica para nosotros y para cualquier docente y persona que esté frente a grupo, y sobre todo también pues esta evaluación, ¿no? De cómo podemos evaluar algunas partes, esto de cómo evaluar algo, el mostrarnos cómo evaluar situaciones que a veces son complicadas para nosotros mismos como maestros. Entonces, mucho éxito, la herramienta se queda. Espero que no sea la última vez, espero que sea el inicio de muchas más y que podamos seguir unidos de esta manera, y aunque sea de esta manera virtual, pero seguir unidos los estados. Gracias por la oportunidad de participar nuevamente. Recibo un saludo y el agradecimiento también de mis autoridades locales por permitirnos ser parte de esta jornada de capacitación.
Muchas gracias, Liliana. Pues no te despedimos, nos acompañas aquí. Se ha incorporado Rosalía Valero y Johnny Frank. Aliados estratégicos, muchas gracias. Les brindo la palabra para que le comentemos a nuestro auditorio pues también nuestras impresiones de cierre. Gracias.
Gracias. Thanks, Sark and colleagues. A big hello to everyone today at the closing of the Jornada Nacional Virtual de Formación y Actualización en Metodología de la Enseñanza del Idioma Inglés para Asesores y Docentes PRONI. We, the Cambridge family, are delighted to have played a part in this great program, which we believe will bring massive benefits for all the ELT professionals that have been participating in it. The program was very ambitious, but the plans drawn up by our colleagues at CEP PRONI were rigorous and realistic, and so we fully supported their approach. You have all seen our collaboration, and we have been really happy for all your enthusiastic feedback and the comments all during our live events. Raising the overall standard of English in Mexico's public schools will continue to create important opportunities in education and the workplace as a result. We're very happy for the invitation to collaborate with our colleagues from the British Council, thanks to Yvette Pompa and Liliana Sanchez, but especially with our key PRONI colleagues, Sark, Juan Carlos, Enrique, Ana Laura, and of course, all the wonderful PRONI coordinators. A big thanks to all of you. I'm very happy to say that you have had a chance to look at the great Cambridge team that I'm happy to represent here today. It's been a pleasure to collaborate with my colleagues from Cambridge English, Cambridge International, Cambridge University Press, and Michigan Language Assessment. Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. As many of you know, I'm proud to acknowledge that I'm a result of Mexican public education. Whenever I have the chance to interact with you, my colleagues, I continue to feel proud and optimistic about the future of Mexico. Again, thanks, and please, everybody keep safe. Gracias.
Thank you. Johnny.
Rosalia, how do I follow that? It was wonderful words, which I concur with completely. It was an honor for us, as Rosalia said, the Cambridge family, to be offered the chance to work and to be able to reach out. For me, especially as somebody from outside the country, it was a particular honor, something I've told a lot of family and friends about how exciting this project is. It was ambitious, and I think it was tremendous. It's been amazing to see the comments, how everything's been received, and we hope that this is some support for what are very challenging times right now for teachers, learners, parents, and wider people that are involved in education in Mexico. Particular thanks to Zark, Juan Carlos, Enrique, Ana Laura, who've been fantastic at supporting us on this side throughout all of this. My final kind of quote is a bit simpler. It's something we use among the Cambridge family, and it's together we go further. And I think that applies in our organization, and it's something that we can apply on a much broader scale throughout Mexico with all teachers, coordinators, federal authorities and figures, as well as Maestro said, strategic alliances, such as with Cambridge and, of course, the British Council.
Muchas gracias. Yo los quiero comprometer a que en las siguientes acciones nos acompañen con estas iniciativas. Creo que las alianzas, como comentaban, pues esta situación nos obligó a repensar formas de trabajar y esta es una excelente manera de llegar y reconocer también el trabajo de los maestros. Liliana, buenas tardes, bienvenida a este cierre. Bienvenida, muchas gracias al Consejo Británico. Pues te cedo el uso de la palabra.
Muchas gracias, licenciado Sark. Antes que nada, yo quiero agradecerle a usted por la iniciativa, por la invitación. Me acuerdo cuando empezamos a hablar de esto, en realidad se vislumbraba algo enorme, pero era nada más una idea, ¿no? Y cuando se empezó a armar y se empezaron a sumar todos los actores tan relevantes, nuestros socios siempre comerciales, pero no solo eso nada más, sino estratégicos que son Cambridge en todas sus modalidades. Y se empiezan a sumar otras organizaciones y esto se convierte en una realidad. Para nosotros, British Council, fue un orgullo poder estar y ser parte de este esfuerzo. Mi agradecimiento de nuevo también a Juan Carlos, a Ana Laura, a Enrique, porque sí fueron momentos un poco angustiantes, a veces no sabíamos si se iba a lograr todas nuestras preguntas, al equipo de producción que nos tuvo toda la paciencia para lograr esto. Y bueno, pues yo quiero también agradecer que a mí personalmente me dieron el espacio. Yo también, como dice Johnny, encuentro muy difícil seguir el discurso después de las palabras que dio Rosalía. Yo también soy hija de la educación básica en el sector público, orgullosamente, también de la secundaria, o sea, primaria y secundaria en sector público. Entonces, me siento muy orgullosa de ser muy parte de esto que está pasando y me siento muy cerca de los maestros. También como Rosalía, soy maestra de profesión, orgullosa maestra y trato siempre de poder seguir en el salón de clase y eso me hace sentirme cerca de todos los maestros que estuvieron hoy presentes. Entonces, si me permite, voy a cambiar inglés nada más para despedirme de los maestros. So, on behalf of the British Council, our new director, Brian Young, our Director of Education Services, Yvette Pompa, we really would like to thank all of you teachers. Keep on working, hard work. It's not an easy time for anybody. There is no looking back. This is the end of a new beginning. This is what looks ahead, and this is an exciting time. There is an opportunity for teachers to prove themselves as who they are, what we can do. We are creative, we're intelligent, we're innovative. I mean, you just bring on to us and we will find ways to find the best solution to them. That's what we are teachers. And English teachers, we are one of the most creative group of people. We always find a solution for the weirdest question that a student can throw at us. But in these very difficult times, where country and world have to prove themselves and survive and understand how to go about, I think teachers, we are proud. We are at the core of this situation because it's education, really, that will bring us out of this mess that probably human beings brought onto themselves. But let's not think about that. It's education the answer. If we can actually understand that basic education, because whatever happens in some years ahead, I will be probably retired somewhere in a forest enjoying a cup of tea. But your students, the people that you have in your classrooms, whether virtual or face-to-face, are going to face this new reality. And you are here to guide them, to equip them, to teach them your best classes, whether online, whether face-to-face, whether hybrid, whether whatever you call it, with whatever tools you have. We are teachers and stand together, and I'm very proud to be one of you. So thank you very much to all of you. Y muchísimas gracias al Programa Nacional de Inglés, la Secretaría de Educación Pública, por hacernos parte de esta Jornada Nacional Virtual para la Capacitación, Formación y un nombre bastante grande, y actualización de la metodología en la enseñanza del idioma inglés para asesores y docentes PRONI. Muchísimas gracias en nombre del British Council y a título personal. Gracias, licenciado Sark.
Muchas gracias, Liliana. Pues también ya se han incorporado nuestros últimos invitados para este cierre. Le voy a ceder el uso de la palabra a la maestra Lula. muy querida y ahora ya por la comunidad PRONI. Maestra, por favor.
Hola, buenas tardes. Ya hablando español me siento rara después de hablar toda la semana en inglés. El ILCE, el Instituto Latinoamericano de Comunicación Educativa, estuvo presente con ustedes, siendo el ILCE, pues, un instituto de tecnología educativa. Nos tocó, afortunadamente, y el gran honor de ser la parte un poquito de poderles aportar la visión que pudiéramos aportar en estos tiempos tan difíciles, de cómo poder llevar las clases pues al nivel de como nos encontramos ahora, ¿no? En la virtualidad. Pero al mismo tiempo poderlos ubicar que un lápiz y un papel también lo resuelven. Y también es tecnología. Y esa creatividad, como bien lo dicen todos ustedes y Liliana que lo acaba de decir, estamos como los maestros. Yo soy English teacher también, yo soy teacher. Yo saqué mi teacher con el anglo estamos equipados, equipped to survive. Ayer cuando platicaba con los maestros y les decía, ¿cómo English teachers are? Y me decían heroes, entre muchas de las palabras, survivors. Obviamente la palabra creative salía muy rápido. Y bueno, el ILCE, en nombre del doctor Enrique Calderón Alzati, que estuvo con nosotros hace un ratito y justo al principio el lunes, estuvo muy atento viendo la última plática, y también por parte del Instituto Tecnológico de Massachusetts, que no se pudieron quedar para esta despedida. Les damos las gracias por la oportunidad. Sepa Inglés, que es nuestra sección de inglés para el ILCE, está a sus órdenes. A sus órdenes no es solamente en la parte de inglés, sino también ayudarlos en la parte de tecnología. Ha sido un honor trabajar con ustedes y pues invítennos de nuevo, aquí estaremos haciendo equipo, que es lo más importante. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Pues quisiera darle el uso de la palabra a nuestro compañero Laurentino. Laurentino forma parte del Programa Nacional de Inglés, pero es una persona que en lo particular nos ha aportado mucho a la parte operativa, a la parte interna del programa. Laurentino, bienvenido, gracias por participar.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Muchas gracias, Sara, Juan Carlos, a tu equipo por la invitación y la oportunidad de poder colaborar en esta jornada nacional virtual. Pues solamente quiero agradecer a todos los asesores y docentes, así como coordinadores y coordinadoras del PRONI en los estados que participaron con mucho profesionalismo en esta jornada nacional virtual de formación y actualización en metodología de la enseñanza del idioma inglés. Gracias por su entusiasmo, por su dedicación al trabajo, pero sobre todo por su apertura al cambio, por sus aportes y por secundarme en ideas y propuestas de planificaciones que hoy vemos realizados, y no dudo que estos trabajos serán los pilares sobre los que se siga apoyando el desarrollo futuro del PRONI. Muchas gracias por su atención y hasta pronto.
Gracias, Laurentino. Pues le doy el uso de la palabra finalmente a alguien que nos ha apoyado desde el inicio del proyecto, Nacho, a través de su representación de DILAR como partner de Google for Education, fue posible realizar este ejercicio. No solamente los webinars, sino toda la plataforma, toda la herramienta que ustedes conocieron en un esquema colaborativo, pues fue posible. Ignacio, te doy el uso de la palabra. Gracias por acompañarnos.
No, muchas gracias a ustedes y muchas felicidades también. Todo lo que han hecho es ya un caso de uso nacional de G Suite. Nosotros siempre nos sentimos muy honrados de haber sido invitados a este proyecto. En Edilar, pues nuestro enfoque son los maestros, y entonces haber participado con nuestro sello Correo el Maestro, con Princeton, en este proyecto, pues nos pone muy contentos. Cuenten con nosotros para otras implementaciones que se requieran, tanto en los estados como a nivel federal de la G Suite. La G Suite es gratuita para instituciones educativas Y ya, bueno, ya veo que ya aprendieron mucho de ella, y creo que podrán seguir lo que sigue, ¿no? Volverse trainers, por ejemplo, certificarse con Google. Cuenten con nosotros para ese proceso. Y la verdad que felicidades, en serio, como decía hace un minuto, usted ya este caso de uso de Google Classroom a esta escala, fueron como 13,000 cuentas creadas, estuvimos en todos los estados, muchísimos alumnos y docentes en cada Classroom. Es un caso de uso que ha hecho ruido a nivel nacional y también a nivel internacional. O sea, se enteran en Estados Unidos y dicen qué está pasando y bueno, les interesa mucho a ellos también este tipo de caso de uso del ecosistema. Para nosotros siempre fue algo que nos entusiasmaba muchísimo. Así que bueno, pues muchas gracias, Sark, también por habernos invitado, por la confianza, Juan Carlos, Ana Laura, el maestro Enrique, y bueno, pues al Programa Nacional de Inglés, a los compañeros de las otras instituciones que participamos. Pues felicidades y cuenten con nosotros para lo que siga.
Te agradezco mucho, Ignacio, y más porque todos los aquí presentes saben que efectivamente, como lo comentó Liliana Sánchez, en un inicio, pues fue una idea, había muchas aristas que resolver, muchos temas, desde la parte tecnológica, pero los contenidos, pero cómo diseñar algo que fuera accesible y un primer acercamiento a todos los profesores, a quienes tienen amplia experiencia, a quienes son sus primeras experiencias y en general, pues en el fortalecer algo que parecía obvio, que es cómo enseñamos, pero nos damos cuenta que hay muchas áreas de oportunidad todavía y gracias a ustedes pues lo logramos, 2 semanas más sigue la plataforma abierta, ello no hace imposible pues el lograr las 60 horas, la capacitación, pero al final del día apropiarse del conocimiento, que es lo que yo les pediría a todos nuestros profesores, apropiense del conocimiento, úsenlo, no hay soluciones para todo, no hay soluciones específicas, pero hay capacidades y creo que ustedes las tienen, las han demostrado y bueno, gracias a todos nuestros aliados, pues hemos podido concluir la parte formal de trabajo de 3 semanas. Yo también les quiero invitar a que estén atentos porque en esta alianza colaborativa buscaremos que tengamos la versión 2 de este programa, que no es necesariamente lo mismo, va a ir en escalada, va a ir hacia temas ya de su práctica, de esto que vieron, de lo que van a hacer en las aulas y de lo que se irán enfrentando y nos gustaría que el siguiente ejercicio pues pudiera ser más de acompañamiento, de asesoramiento, de una mentoría en el que no solamente les digamos, sino también platiquemos de casos concretos en el que ahora sí, en la práctica, pues podamos ayudarles a mejorar y a lograr lo que quiere el Programa Nacional de Inglés, y es que nuestros alumnos, nuestras niñas ni niños, adquieran capacidades, ¿sí? Las ejerzan y esto les ayuda a transformar su realidad. Y nos depende mucho de nosotros. Somos, de alguna manera, profesores transformadores. Creo que es un área de oportunidad y es gratificante que los niños que decidan y nos permitan acompañarlos en esa transformación, pues logremos ser también efectivos, ¿sí? Está mucho en nuestras manos el incentivar, el motivar. Y creo que este ejercicio pues nos ha llevado a esa parte. Muchas gracias a todos. A nombre del Programa Nacional de Inglés, les doy las gracias a todos mis coordinadores, a todos ellos que me han estado apoyando, que han estado atendiendo dudas de todo tipo específicas y pues esperamos ahora con las definiciones que nos ha dado la autoridad educativa a partir del próximo 24 de agosto, entrar con todo para recuperarnos de este año que ha sido muy difícil, pero que nos abrió estas oportunidades, ¿sí? Muchas gracias a todos y pues a continuar con este Programa Nacional de Inglés. Gracias a todos por su participación, por su acompañamiento.
Va por México.